He asked a student to pretend as his wife. For one day, 7 days later, her words changed everything. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain drizzled outside the coffee shop near Boston University, soft and cold against the glass. Inside, the air smelled of roasted beans and rain-soaked pavement. At a corner table sat Ethan Ward, a man in his early 30s, crisp suit, quiet eyes, and the kind of stillness that made people lower their voices around him. A thin folder rested on the table beside a silver wedding band. He kept checking his watch, the minutes ticking toward something he clearly did not want to do. Across the street, Lily Evans ran through the puddles, clutching a worn backpack and an envelope of unpaid bills. Her shoes were soaked, her hair sticking to her cheeks, but she forced herself to breathe. Her mother's medical payments were due tomorrow. The scholarship she had depended on was gone. This meeting, whatever it was, might be the only thing standing between her and losing everything. When she entered, a warm bell chimed above the door. Ethan lifted his gaze, and for a moment their eyes met hers, anxious, his unreadable. "Miss Evans?" he asked, his voice low and precise. She nodded, sliding into the seat across from him. "Yes, Mr. Ward. You said this was about a job?" He hesitated, fingers brushing the edge of the wedding band before he finally spoke. "Not exactly a job, more of an arrangement." He opened the folder. Inside lay a single-page contract. "I need someone to pretend to be my wife for one day." Lily blinked, certain she had misheard. "I am sorry. What?" Ethan did not flinch. "My father's memorial is this weekend. My relatives expect to meet my spouse, and without one, I lose control of the family foundation he left behind. You will attend as my wife. One day. That is all." Her heart pounded. "You cannot be serious." "I am," he replied quietly. "I will pay $10,000. Cash. You will leave after the event, no strings attached." The coffee shop's hum seemed to fade. Lily's mind raced. $10,000 could pay her mother's hospital bills, her rent, her tuition. Still, the thought of pretending to be a stranger's wife felt surreal. Ethan studied her face, reading the storm behind her eyes. "There are conditions," he added. "You must follow the contract exactly. No personal questions, no emotional involvement, and after the event, we never meet again." His voice was calm, businesslike, but something flickered beneath it. Loneliness, perhaps regret. Lily exhaled slowly, her fingers trembling as she traced the edge of the paper. "Why me?" "Because," he said after a beat, "you look like someone who keeps her promises." The clock above them clicked softly. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. She glanced once more at the folder, then at the man across the table, the billionaire whose name she had only ever seen in the news. Everything about him said danger and control, yet something in his voice carried honesty. Finally, she reached for the pen. "One day, right?" Ethan nodded. "One day." Her hand shook slightly as she signed her name. When he slid the silver wedding band toward her, her reflection shimmered in the polished metal. She slipped it onto her finger, and for the first time, their gazes locked not as strangers, but as two people about to enter the most complicated lie of their lives. Outside, the rain turned heavier, tapping against the glass like a warning. Neither of them could hear. Rain dripped from the iron gate when Lily arrived at Ethan Ward's mansion that evening. The car stopped beneath the awning, and for a second she hesitated before stepping out. The place looked like something out of a dream, stone columns, wide steps, and golden light spilling from tall windows. It was beautiful, but it did not feel like her world. A butler opened the door, and the sound of soft piano drifted from inside. Ethan stood near the grand staircase, already in a black tuxedo. His calm eyes lifted when he saw her enter. For a heartbeat, he seemed to forget to breathe. She wore a simple cream gown that flowed like silk water, her hair pinned neatly, her nerves hidden behind a small, polite smile. "You look perfect," he said quietly. She tried to laugh, her voice trembling. I feel like an imposter. He offered his arm. Then I suppose we both are. The drive to the gala was silent at first. Rain streaked across the window while city lights reflected in her eyes. Lily glanced down at the silver ring on her hand and whispered, Do you ever get used to pretending? Ethan turned his gaze toward her. In my world, pretending is how people survive. His tone softened. Just stay close to me tonight. Speak little, smile often, and remember it is only for one day. The car pulled up to the hotel ballroom, where cameras flashed under the canopy. Reporters shouted his name. Ethan stepped out first, his posture calm, then offered his hand to Lily. The moment she took it, every head turned. For a girl who had spent her life invisible, the attention felt blinding. Inside, chandeliers glittered above velvet tables. Laughter and the clinking of glasses filled the air. Ethan guided her to the center table marked Ward Foundation. The people around them were the powerful kind: lawyers, donors, relatives. Lily could feel their eyes studying her every move. One older woman leaned forward with a smile, too sharp to be kind. So, Mrs. Ward, where did you two meet? Lily's mind went blank for a second, but then she remembered Ethan's briefing. At a psychology conference, she said softly. He was giving a lecture on leadership and empathy. The table laughed lightly. Ethan's lips curved, the faintest hint of pride. She is exaggerating, he said smoothly. I was terrible at public speaking. For the first time, the tension between them cracked, replaced by something human. Later, when the orchestra began to play, Ethan stood and extended his hand. Dance with me, she hesitated. I do not know how to dance like them. Follow my lead, he said. His voice was low, patient. She placed her hand in his, and he guided her gently onto the floor. Around them, couples swayed beneath the lights. She stepped on his shoe once, then twice, and he almost smiled. You are doing fine, he whispered. Just breathe. For a few moments, the noise faded, and it was only the rhythm of their steps and the quiet sound of rain against the tall glass windows. After the dance, they slipped outside onto the balcony. The night air was cool and smelled of wet stone and roses. Below them, the city shimmered. You handled them well tonight, Ethan said, leaning on the railing. I was terrified, she admitted, but I think I remembered all my lines. You did, he said softly. Better than you think. She looked at him, her voice quieter now. You do not have to thank me. I know this is just business. He turned toward her, his eyes unreadable. Maybe it started that way, but not everything in business has to feel cold. A gust of wind swept between them, carrying her hair across her face. For a second, he reached out as if to move it away, then stopped himself. The distance remained, but it felt fragile now, like glass ready to crack. When they returned inside, the event was ending. Guests shook hands, photographers snapped one last round of pictures, and Ethan gave his speech about his father's legacy. His voice was steady, but when he said the words family and trust, his gaze found hers. By the time they left, the rain had stopped. The city lights glowed against the wet pavement. In the car, she rested her hands on her lap, still wearing the ring. So, she said quietly, was this enough to convince them? Ethan's answer came after a long pause. Yes, he said, but I am beginning to wonder who I was really trying to convince. Lily looked at him, uncertain, but before she could speak, the driver turned onto the long road back to the mansion. Neither of them noticed the flash of a camera from across the street, the first photo that would set the next storm in motion. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains of the guest room. Lily woke slowly, unsure where she was for a moment. The cream-colored walls, the scent of roses, the silk sheets, it all felt unreal. Then she saw the ring on her hand and remembered. The gala, the dance, the way Ethan had looked at her when he said, "Not everything in business has to feel cold." She sat up, her pulse quickening. The clock on the wall read 8:30. She was supposed to leave after the event, but no one had said anything yet. Her phone, which had been silent since yesterday, buzzed on the table. Dozens of notifications flashed across the screen, messages, tags, and one headline that made her blood run cold. Ethan Ward's secret wife revealed mystery woman from the gala sparks rumors. Lily's heart pounded. Someone had leaked the story. There were photographs of her in Ethan's arms on the dance floor, her face turned toward him beneath the golden lights. She looked radiant, in love. She felt sick. A knock came at the door. Before she could answer, Claire, Ethan's assistant, stepped in, holding a tablet. Her tone was clipped and cold. "You should come downstairs. Mr. Ward is waiting." Lily followed her through the marble hallway into the study. Ethan stood near the desk, a newspaper spread open in his hands. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. "So," he said without preamble, "you saw it." "Yes," she whispered. "I do not understand." "I did not tell anyone." He cut her off. "Then how did this get out? The press knew your name, your university, even your major." "Someone talked, Lily." Her throat tightened. "I swear, I did not say a word." Claire crossed her arms. "Maybe she told a friend." "Students talk." "I did not." Lily's voice cracked. "I did not tell anyone. You have to believe me." Ethan's gaze was sharp but conflicted. "Belief is not something I give easily." The silence stretched until it hurt. "Finally," he said, "the foundation board is furious. They think I staged the marriage for sympathy. They are threatening to suspend my position. This is a disaster." Lily took a step forward. "Then let me help. Tell them the truth, that it was just a contract, that—" He slammed the paper down. "Do you want to ruin both of us? If this gets out, they will destroy the foundation and everything my father built." Tears filled her eyes. "Then what do you want me to do?" "Leave," he said quietly. "Now." The word landed like a blow. She turned away, trying not to let him see her cry. Claire handed her an envelope. The payment, as agreed. Lily looked down at it, her fingers shaking. The money that was supposed to save her mother suddenly felt like blood on her hands. "I do not want this anymore." She dropped the envelope on the desk and walked out. Ethan stood motionless as the door closed. For a long time, he said nothing. When Claire spoke, her voice was soft, almost triumphant. "You did the right thing. She was not your problem." But her words only made the room feel colder. He stared at the silver ring, left on the table, the one he had given her for the charade, now resting in the morning light. That night, Lily returned to her apartment. The noise of the city was distant, muffled by exhaustion. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the dress folded in a garment bag. The events of the past 48 hours spun through her mind like a fever dream. The contract, the gala, the laughter, the way his hand had steadied hers on the dance floor. She whispered to herself, "It was never real. I should have known." Across the city, Ethan poured himself a glass of whiskey he did not drink. The study was silent, except for the faint ticking of a clock. On the desk, the newspaper headline glared back at him. He picked up his phone twice, then put it down. He had wanted control. Now all he felt was emptiness. The next morning, news channels replayed the photographs. Analysts speculated about the fake marriage scandal. Some praised him for showing a human side, others mocked him. Ethan avoided interviews and locked himself in his office. Late that night, he opened the foundation's website. Among the hundreds of comments, one caught his eye. It was anonymous, but he knew the tone. "Real trust does not come from contracts, Mr. Ward. It comes from faith." He leaned back, eyes closed, recognizing the words as hers. For the first time in years, Ethan Ward realized he had built an empire on control and lost the only honest thing that had ever entered his life. Outside, the rain returned, steady and cold against the glass, washing the city clean while he sat alone in the dim light, staring at the empty space where she once stood. 3 days passed. The city kept moving, but for Ethan Ward, everything felt suspended. Every newspaper headline, every talk show, every online post carried his name. Fake marriage scandal, Ward Foundation in crisis, who is the student wife? Each word was a blade cutting deeper into the image he had spent, his life protecting. Inside his penthouse, the curtains remained closed. Coffee grew cold on the table beside stacks of unread documents. He had shut out everyone: his board, his assistant, even his lawyers. Claire had tried to explain that the public relations team could spin the story, but he had dismissed her. The truth was heavier than the rumors. He had broken his own rules, and worse, He had broken her trust. Meanwhile, across the river, Lily returned to the hospital where her mother was being treated. The money she had refused still weighed on her conscience. The nurses were kind, but the bills were unforgiving. Every time she reached for her phone to call Ethan, she stopped herself. What would she even say? I forgive you? The thought felt impossible. That evening, she walked through the quiet hospital corridor carrying a small tray of soup for her mother. The television in the waiting room played softly. Ethan's face appeared on the screen. The news anchor said, "Sources confirm that the Ward Foundation will hold an emergency board meeting tomorrow to decide whether Ethan Ward will remain as CEO." Lily froze. The image showed him walking through the lobby, ignoring the swarm of cameras. He looked different, exhausted, hollow-eyed. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, but the man beneath the armor. The next day, the boardroom at Ward Industries buzzed with tension. Reporters gathered outside, their cameras trained on the glass doors. Inside, 12 members of the foundation sat around the long table. Ethan stood at the head, his voice steady but low. "The rumors are true," he began. "The marriage was an arrangement. I take full responsibility." Gasps filled the room. One board member leaned forward. "Do you realize what this has done to our credibility? Donors are pulling out. The foundation is collapsing." Ethan met their eyes one by one. "Then I will resign, effective immediately." Whispers broke out. Claire, sitting near the end of the table, stared at him in disbelief. "You cannot do this, Ethan. Think about your father's legacy." "I am thinking about it," he said, "and I refuse to let my father's name stand on a lie." Outside, the cameras flashed as he left the building, ignoring the reporters shouting questions. Rain had started again, soaking his shoulders as he walked alone down the steps. That night, a storm swept through the city. Lightning flickered over the skyline. Lily sat by her mother's bed, scrolling through her phone. A video had just been uploaded to the Ward Foundation's page, Ethan's resignation speech. He stood behind a podium, drenched from the rain, speaking without a teleprompter. "My mistake," he said, "was believing I could control everything, even the truth. But the truth does not belong to those who hide it. It belongs to those who have the courage to live it." His voice wavered, just once. "To the woman who reminded me of that, thank you." Lily's eyes blurred. The sound of her mother's breathing monitor filled the room like a heartbeat. She closed the phone, her chest tight with something between pain and pride. Later that night, she stepped outside into the rain. The city was quiet, only the distant hum of traffic echoing through the streets. She lifted her face to the sky, letting the cold drops wash away the last traces of anger. Across town, Ethan sat alone on the rooftop of his building, the same rooftop where he had once looked down on the world with confidence. Now he looked out and saw nothing but rain. He whispered to himself, "It was never supposed to be real." Then, almost as if the words themselves betrayed him, he added softly, "But it was." The thunder rolled in the distance, and for the first time in years, he let himself feel everything he had spent his life avoiding: loss, regret, and the faint hope that somewhere out there she might still care. 2 weeks passed. The storm of headlines began to fade, replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. The world moved on, but Ethan Ward did not. He spent his mornings walking the empty halls of the foundation he no longer owned, and his nights alone in the penthouse that had become little more than a cage made of glass and silence. Everywhere he looked, he saw reminders of her: the silver ring she had left on his desk, the faint perfume that lingered in the passenger seat of his car. Even the sound of rain on the windows reminded him of that night at the gala, the moment she had looked at him without fear. He told himself to forget, but every day felt heavier than the last. One evening, he sat in the dark study, staring at the framed photo of his late father, the man who had taught him discipline but never warmth. "You were right," Ethan whispered. "Money keeps people close, but it does not make them stay." Across the city, Lily walked home from her evening shift at the cafe. The hospital bills had been paid through a small scholarship donation that appeared under her mother's name, a donation signed only with the initials E.W. She knew who it was, and that knowledge filled her with a mixture of gratitude and heartache. That weekend, She decided to visit the art museum downtown. It had always been her quiet place, somewhere she could think. But when she arrived, she stopped at the entrance, frozen by a new banner stretched across the marble pillars. The Ward Foundation presents The Faces of Hope, featuring the works of student artists across the city. Her breath caught. She had submitted a small sketch to that competition months ago, long before she met Ethan. She walked inside. The air smelled of fresh paint and paper. At the center of the gallery stood a framed charcoal drawing hers. Beneath it was a plaque that read, "Donated by the Ward Foundation in honor of Lily Evans." Tears stung her eyes. The drawing showed a young woman standing in bald, the rain, holding her head high, her reflection shining in a puddle below. A soft voice behind her said, "You captured strength better than I ever could." She turned. Ethan stood a few feet away, wearing no suit this time, only a gray sweater and the expression of a man who had lost and learned. "Why did you do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because you deserve to be seen," he said. "Not as my mistake, as yourself." For a moment, neither spoke. The gallery lights glowed around them, quiet and warm. He took a slow breath. "Lily, I cannot change what I did. I hurt you, and I let fear make my choices. But I meant every word I said in that speech. You reminded me what trust looks like, what honesty feels like." She looked down, blinking back tears. "You did not have to give up everything for that." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But if I had not lost everything, I would never have realized what truly mattered." Her eyes met his. "And what is that?" He smiled faintly. "You." The words hung in the air like a fragile truth. She wanted to believe them, but years of struggle had taught her to be careful. "I do not want a fairy tale, Ethan. I just want something real. That is all I want too," he said. He reached into his pocket and opened his hand. The same silver ring glimmered in the light. No contracts this time, no pretending, just a question. Lily's breath caught as he knelt down, not in front of a crowd, not for a show, but quietly, sincerely. "Will you give us another chance?" For a moment, the noise of the city disappeared. There was only the soft hum of lights, the faint echo of rain outside, and the steady rhythm of two hearts that had finally stopped running from the truth. She took his hand, her smile trembling. "One day," you said. But one day changed everything. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger again, and when she leaned in to hug him, the crowd around them began to say, applaud without even knowing why. That night, the rain returned not as a storm, but as a promise washing over the city. And somewhere between the raindrops, their story began again, no longer bound by contracts or fear, but by the quiet courage of love that had found its way home. A month later, the city bloomed again with spring light. The rain that had once haunted their story had turned gentle, washing the streets clean. Ethan Ward was no longer the face on magazine covers or business panels. He had stepped away from the boardroom and into a quieter rhythm of life. Yet somehow, that quiet finally felt right. Each morning he walked to a small art center near the river, a place he had built from the remnants of his father's foundation. It was no longer about prestige or profit. The new name on the front sign read, "The Evans Ward Community Gallery." Children painted beside students, veterans crafted sculptures, and young artists found scholarships waiting with no publicity attached. Ethan had discovered peace in giving, not in owning. Lily was there every afternoon. She had started teaching free art classes, her laughter filling the hallways. When he watched her explain shading to a group of teenagers, he saw what love looked like when it stopped pretending. One evening, after everyone had left, she stayed behind to clean the brushes. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, painting golden lines across the floor. Ethan walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You still overwork yourself," he said softly. She smiled. "I like seeing this place full. It feels alive." "It does," he agreed, handing her the cup. "You made it that way." For a moment, silence stretched between them, the kind of silence that no longer felt awkward. It was simply comfortable, earned. Lily set the brush down and looked at him. "You know, I never asked. Why did you put my name first on the sign?" He tilted his head. "Because you were the reason it became real. Without you, It would have been another charity that looked perfect but meant nothing. Her eyes softened. "You are not the man I met in that cafe, Ethan." "Good," he said quietly. "He needed to learn how to live." They both laughed, and for the first time since the chaos began, it felt like the world had forgiven them. Later that week, the gallery hosted a small ceremony, nothing grand, just friends, students, and a few of the people who had once doubted him. When the speeches ended, Ethan stood before the crowd with Lily beside him. "When I first started the Ward Foundation, I thought success meant control," he said. "But then I met someone who taught me that real strength is in trust. This gallery is proof that beginnings can come from mistakes." The audience applauded. Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright. "You are getting better at speeches," she whispered. "Only when you are beside me," he replied. After the guests left, they remained alone under the soft lights. Outside, the city glowed across the river, and the reflection shimmered through the glass. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lily blinked, surprised. "We already have the ring," she said. He nodded. "That one was a promise. This one is a vow." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band engraved with tiny letters inside. "No contract. Just forever." Her breath caught, tears filling her eyes. "Ethan." He took her hand. "Marry me again. No audience, no cameras. Just us." She laughed through her tears. "You do realize we never had a real wedding? Then it is time we do." Days later, under the canopy of spring blossoms, they stood together on the same rooftop where they had once looked at each other as strangers. This time there were no reporters, no contracts, only a small group of close friends and the city skyline behind them. When Ethan slid the new ring onto her finger, he whispered, "You once said one day changed everything. I hope every day after this one keeps proving you right." Lily smiled, her voice trembling but sure. "It already has." As they kissed, the wind carried petals across the sky, and for the first time, their story felt complete, not as a business deal, but as the life they had both been brave enough to choose. The city lights shimmered below, and the world that had once judged them now simply watched in quiet wonder as love, honest, imperfect, and real, found its forever. A few months later, summer settled over the city. The Evans Ward Community Gallery had become a quiet landmark of kindness. Every morning, sunlight streamed through its tall windows, and laughter echoed from the classrooms. What had once begun as a contract had turned into something living, something that touched people far beyond the two who had started it. Lily loved those mornings. She would unlock the doors, greet the students, and hang up new drawings to dry. Sometimes she still caught herself smiling at the memory of that first day in the cafe, the nervous girl who could barely look the billionaire in the eye. Now, when she looked across the room and saw Ethan adjusting a frame or helping a child mix colors, she felt peace instead of fear. Ethan had changed too. The weight that used to sit on his shoulders was gone. He no longer carried the voice of his father in his head. His hands, once used to sign deals and contracts, now built easels, swept floors, and held Lily's hand whenever she passed by. One afternoon, a young journalist visited the gallery to write an article about the transformation of the Ward Foundation. She asked, "Mr. Ward, what made you step away from a billion-dollar company to build this place?" Ethan smiled. "Because success means nothing if it costs you honesty. I learned that from the woman who stood beside me when I had nothing to offer but the truth." The journalist turned to Lily. "And you, Mrs. Ward? Do you ever miss the old life?" Lily shook her head gently. "I never had that life. I only have this one, the real one, the one we built." The article later went viral, titled, "From Contract to Forever, the Billionaire Who Learned to Be Human." But neither of them cared about the attention. Their lives had already found their rhythm, ordinary, quiet, full of purpose. One evening, after closing the gallery, they returned to the rooftop where they had married. The sunset painted the sky with gold and rose. Lily leaned against Ethan's shoulder. "Do you ever think about how everything started?" He nodded. "Every day. You sat in front of me with that look that said you did not believe a word I said, and you were right not to. I was a man who had forgotten how to feel." She smiled. "And now? Now I wake up every morning and remember that love is not a deal to be signed. It is a choice to be made, again and again. The wind moved softly through the evening air, carrying the faint sound of music from the city below. They stood there, watching the lights flicker on, knowing that the world would keep changing, but their promise would not. From a contract built on desperation had come a love built on truth. And in that truth, Ethan and Lily finally found what neither wealth nor status could ever buy, a forever that was real. Autumn came quietly, painting the city in shades of gold and rust. The gallery thrived, its walls filled with color, its halls alive with voices. Ethan and Lily Ward had become a symbol of redemption and sincerity, though they never called themselves that. To them, it was not a story about wealth or scandal, it was simply about learning to love honestly. One Saturday morning, Lily stood in front of a new exhibit, a collection of paintings by underprivileged students. Each canvas told a story of struggle and hope. Ethan approached from behind, slipping his arm gently around her shoulders. "They have your courage," he said. She smiled softly. "No, they have ours." Later that day, they hosted an open workshop. Children from different neighborhoods painted side by side with elderly veterans, laughter mixing with the smell of acrylic and coffee. Ethan watched as Lily moved through the room, helping a young boy fix a broken paintbrush. She had always been the light in every room, and he knew she would never stop being that. When the workshop ended, an old man approached Ethan, shaking his hand firmly. "You changed this community, son," he said. "But more than that, you changed what people think success means." Ethan smiled, humbled. "I think I just learned it the hard way." That evening, the sky turned crimson. They locked up the gallery and walked home together, fingers intertwined. The wind carried the faint scent of rain again, and Lily looked up at the clouds. "It feels like the same night we met," she said quietly. Ethan chuckled. "Except this time, there is no contract." "No," she agreed, "just love, and a lot of paint on my hands." They laughed, their footsteps echoing on the wet pavement. At the corner cafe, the same one where their story had started, Ethan stopped and opened the door for her. Inside, the same soft hum of conversation, the same golden light through the glass. They sat at the same table, and for a while, they said nothing. They simply looked at each other, two people who had survived their mistakes and built something pure from them. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "Do you ever think," he asked, "what would have happened if you had said no that day?" Lily's eyes glowed with warmth. "Maybe I would still be here. Maybe fate would have found another way." He smiled. "Then I guess I owe fate everything." Outside, the rain began again, soft, forgiving, almost musical. It tapped gently against the windows as they shared quiet laughter, knowing that every drop was part of the same melody that had once brought them together. Their story no longer belonged to contracts or headlines. It belonged to the small, enduring truth they had found in each other, the kind of love that did not fade when the world stopped watching, the kind of love that stayed, quietly, forever. Winter returned, soft and bright, laying a thin layer of snow over the city that had once witnessed their scandal, their downfall, and their rebirth. Inside the Evans Ward Gallery, the lights glowed warm against the cold night outside. A holiday benefit was underway, filled with laughter, music, and the scent of pine and cinnamon. For many guests, this evening was another charity event. For Ethan and Lily, it was something far deeper, the final proof that love built on truth could outlast anything. As guests mingled among the paintings, Lily stood by the window, watching snowflakes drift past the glass. She wore a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She no longer looked like the shy student who had once signed a contract in a cafe. She looked like someone who had found peace. Ethan joined her, slipping his arm gently around her waist. "Do you remember the last time it snowed like this?" he asked. She smiled. "The night after the gala. You were furious with me." He laughed quietly. "I was furious with myself. I just did not know it yet." They turned together to look at the crowd, students, families, board members, people from every corner of the city, all of them laughing beneath the glow of twinkling lights. "You built this," Lily whispered. "No," Ethan said softly. "We built this. You gave it meaning." When the music quieted, The event coordinator took the stage. "Tonight marks 1 year since the gallery opened," she announced. "And it would not exist without the generosity and vision of Ethan and Lily Ward." Applause filled the room, and the two exchanged a look, one of disbelief and quiet pride. After the speeches, Ethan led Lily up the staircase to the rooftop terrace. Snow was falling steadily now, turning the city below into a sea of silver and gold. The cold air carried a peace neither of them had known before. He turned to her, his breath visible in the winter light. "You know, when I asked you to pretend to be my wife for 1 day, I thought I was saving my reputation, but you ended up saving me." She laughed softly. "And when I said yes, I thought I was just buying time to pay my mother's bills. I never imagined it would bring me here." Ethan took both her hands in his. "We cannot change how it started, but we can decide how it continues." "And how does it continue?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He smiled. "With no more pretending, with choosing each other every day." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope, the edges damp from snow. "This is the deed to the gallery," he said. "It is in your name now. I want this place to stand as proof that love and kindness build better legacies than money ever could." Tears filled her eyes. "Ethan, I cannot—" "Yes, you can," he said gently. "It was always yours." She threw her arms around him, the snow melting in her hair. For a long moment they stood like that, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city below. When they finally pulled back, Ethan brushed a snowflake from her cheek. "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Ward." She smiled through her tears. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Ward." Below them, the gallery lights shimmered through the snow, reflecting off the windows like tiny stars. The same city that had once judged them now carried their story in its silence, a story that began with a contract, faltered through misunderstanding, and ended in something far stronger, a love that had learned to tell the truth. As the snow kept falling, the world felt still, as if holding its breath. And for Ethan and Lily, standing hand in hand under the endless sky, forever did not feel like a promise anymore. It felt like home,